I think that you got to think of money as a currency component and a property component. And the currency is the medium of exchange that you're going to use to pay your day-to-day bills. And that's a government monopoly. Every place there's a nation state, they're going to control the currency. And then the property is your long-term store of value, right? Whether it's your ranch or it's your collectibles or whether it's your company stock or whether it's Bitcoin. The cutoff, the clear theoretical cutoff, I think is 4 years. Like you want a really safe cutoff. Look at the 4-year moving average of Bitcoin. If you have money that you can afford to put away and hold for more than 4 years, you would be foolish to store it in a currency. Like even the strongest currency world, the dollar is the strongest currency in the world, but you would be foolish to store money for more than 4 years in the dollar. So I think that you look out and you say, well, stuff I've got that I want to hold for 4 to 40 years, I have to put in a property portfolio. And we're just going to debate whether you should buy a building, buy a company, buy a Bitcoin, buy a bunch of, art, right? That's another story. For less than 4 years, maybe you want a currency. I would think that, I would normally keep currency for 1 to 2 years, conservative 2 years. 2 to 4 years is being almost too conservative, but you want to be really conservative. You could keep 4 years of cash. Now, what would I say to people that said, why not use currency? Well, first I would say, if you live in Lebanon or Turkey or Argentina or Venezuela or anywhere in Africa or most places in Asia, you don't have the option to use the dollar. And so it's the wrong comparison. It's not a comparison of Bitcoin versus the dollar for the next 4 years. It's a comparison of Bitcoin versus the Turkish lira or Bitcoin versus the Venezuelan bolivar or Bitcoin. Go Google blue dollar and check the black market rate of the current the current peso right now. And I'll do it just for our benefit. Blue dollar informal rate 267. Okay, and you look at the chart and you roll the clock back to 2017, it was 18. Okay, so what would I say to that person? I would say, in the last 5 years, you have lost 95% of your wealth holding currency. Okay, you're like, well, why can't they just all buy dollars? Well, because it's illegal to buy the dollars. Go check the formal rate. The formal bank rate is 127 pesos to the dollar. The actual rate is 270. What's the difference? The difference is the bank won't sell you the dollars. That's why it's cheap, right? So Bitcoin is an option for anybody in the world that lives in a nation where they can't trust the bank or they can't trust the local currency. And that's the killer app for them. In that case, this is common sense, right? If I told you the currency was going to collapse in a month and you lived in Venezuela, you would keep 3 days worth of cash in the bolivar. You would keep a month worth of cash in the peso. You would keep a year worth of cash in the dollar, and you would keep the rest of the money that you owned in property. Go buy a car, go buy something. Because I'm telling you, right, that whatever you bought, if you bought 100 houses 5 years ago, 95 of the 100 are getting burned, and you'll have 5 houses in 5 years. So it's not complicated. So I think that the problem with all the currencies over the long term is the best currency in the world is going to lose 99.9% of its value in 100 years. The best. The dollar is going to lose 99.9% of its value over 100 years. Okay, so it's really just a question of what is your time frame. And if you look at the monetary inflation rate, in a good year for 90 years on average before 2020, it was 7% a year in the dollar, 14% a year in the developing world. And this is not controversial. Go study the history of currency collapses in Argentina, in Mexico, in Africa, and Russia's currency collapsed in 98. They all collapsed. So go study them and you'll realize that. So most currencies are losing 15% of their value a year, and the dollar is losing 8% of its value a year. But in 2020, we stamped down on the accelerator and the dollar started losing 16% or more of its value, actually 20% of its value a year for 2 years running, if you look at the M2 money supply. And that means everybody else started losing double that. And that's why you have riots in Sri Lanka right now, right? That's why you have riots in Argentina. That's why you have a collapse in all sorts of places, because the currency's losing, when it's weak, it's losing 40% of its value a year. When it's strong, it's losing 15 to 20% of its value a year. And the only reason that you're not panicked in the US is because the CPI is manipulated to create the lowest possible inflation number, right? Which is, the lowest number they can possibly create is like 8% right now. But you don't got to be a rocket scientist to figure out that the rate at which stuff you need to buy is going up in price is more than 8%, right? Energy, food, I have friends, they run all sorts of normal real world companies. They go, yeah, like everything we used to buy 24 months ago is 50% more expensive now. And we passed the price increase on to all of our customers and they accepted it. And that's in the US. But in Sri Lanka, do you guys know what happened in Sri Lanka this weekend?
Yeah, I saw some of the videos.
The craziest
Crazy
timeline
stuff.
when you search it.
And you know what caused the riots where they deposed the entire government? What was the breaking point? It was, they're running 60%, 70% inflation. If the government admits 70% inflation, that means it's probably double, right? Start from that. But here's the breaking point. The government put out an edict saying that private citizens are not allowed to buy gasoline.
That's how they're going to sell the price of going up.
Okay, so if you want to crash an economy, how do you do it? Well, you lock down the economy, right? Put everybody under home arrest, and that will crash an economy. But the other way to crash an economy is I just tell you, you're not allowed to drive a car. You can't go anywhere and you can't do anything. Okay, so, I'm sure that someone that came with the idea thought it was prudent. But of course, at the end of the day, if you print so much money, I think they were also modern monetary theorists and they had the idea you could print money. You cannot, the people that think you can print money are the people that don't understand conservation of energy, right? You can't print infinite money if you have finite energy, right? The price of everything, escalates exponentially. And it's pretty obvious that in this case, if we shut down the economy, if I want to crash the economy, I cut output in half by telling people they can't work, they shouldn't work, and they should be afraid to work, right? Or I don't let them work. Then I close off the borders, right? By shutting down the shipping lines, raising tariffs, and shutting down all the air transport. And then I double the money supply. Okay, so what I've